Hey everyone, this is Lord of Leaks. Marvel isn't holding back this time. Instead of one teaser, they're rolling out 4 Doomsday teasers alongside Avatar. Some of them have already surfaced online in one form or another, so feel free to help each other out in the comments by sharing where to find them. And now, let's break down the first long-awaited footage from the most anticipated movie of 2026. And yes, get ready to apologize in the comments, because I was right in my theories again. But first, let's stick to the facts. THR has officially confirmed that Marvel is going all in on Doomsday marketing, with 4 separate trailers planned. The current plan is to show them before Avatar, 1 per week, although the final rollout may still change. That said, the exact schedule doesn't matter much anymore, because the contents of these trailers are already known. The first 3 are character-focused teasers centered on Steve Rogers, Thor, and Doctor Doom. They don't reveal much story-wise, other than confirming that all 3 will have major roles in the film. The 4th one, however, is a full trailer. Some insiders even claim it's technically the 5th, since there may be another secret character teaser shown before it, but that's beside the point. Here's what really matters. Fact number 1. A full, canon, no compromises return of Chris Evans as Steve Rogers. And yes, Steve Rogers specifically. In the teaser, he's addressed by name, while the Captain America suit appears only as a relic of the past. It's pretty clear Marvel is trying to maintain the idea that Anthony Mackie's character is still the official Cap, even if it feels more symbolic than real. Instead of the shield, we see Steve holding a child, a direct callback to the ending of Endgame and the quiet life he built with Peggy. And of course, that piece is about to be shattered by Doctor Doom. And this is where we really expect those apologies. For 6 months now, we've been saying the same thing. The Russo brothers are making Doomsday a direct sequel to Endgame, not the conclusion of the Multiverse saga. People mocked that idea in the comments, and now it's officially confirmed. This isn't the finale of the Multiverse storyline. It's a continuation of Infinity War and Endgame, where Steve Rogers' actions in the past become the foundation of his conflict with Doom. One of the leading theories is that Steve became a multiversal anomaly and somehow caused the destruction of Victor's family. The specifics are still unclear, but the idea alone has already ignited heated debates online. Not everyone is happy with Marvel effectively sidelining the Multiverse saga. Insider Daniel openly criticized the studio, pointing out that Marvel spent 5 years pushing interconnected films and shows, only to then make Steve Rogers, a character who never appeared in the Multiverse saga, the central figure of its final chapter. We don't agree with that criticism. Honestly, Marvel didn't have a viable alternative. Making a movie that requires deep knowledge of Miss Marvel would be a disaster. Making Wonder Man the leader of the Avengers, as once planned, would also fail. And the Sharon Carter storyline from The Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Even the Russo critics themselves seem to have forgotten about that by now. I think Marvel ultimately made a firm, decisive call. Yes, it's a predictable one, but for the past 5 years, the studio has been trying way too hard to constantly surprise fans, which is how I ended up with things like Ralph Bohner and the Illuminati. Sometimes it's better to simply give audiences what they actually want, without reinventing the wheel. So let's close this topic and accept a simple reality. Before Doomsday, the only must-watch projects are the films of the Infinity Saga, including Endgame. Sure, you can also take a quick look at Loki and Deadpool and Wolverine, but now let's get back to the details. Insiders who correctly predicted the Steve Rogers teaser say Thor is next in line. What exactly is happening there is still unclear, but the key point is this. Thor has his own teaser, unlike Anthony Mackie's Captain America, which means Thor is also a major player in Doomsday. That alone suggests Marvel finally realized they've piled up so much narrative chaos that only the legacy characters can clean it up. Yes, this creates a problem, essentially rolling the MCU back to a 2019-style status quo and forcing Marvel to search for new faces again in the next saga, but realistically, there wasn't another viable option. The 3rd teaser, according to reports, focuses on Doctor Doom. Details are still scarce, but sources claim this one is the most informative of the 3. It doesn't just confirm Doom's presence, it also touches on parts of his backstory, which makes sense considering Kevin Feige spent most of the saga cracking jokes and chasing agendas instead of properly setting up the main villain. Overall, insiders say Doomsday will frame Doctor Doom as if he's the true protagonist of the story. Captain America, Thor, and the other Avengers aren't exactly villains, but they're definitely not portrayed as pure heroes either. For Marvel, that's an unusual and genuinely intriguing creative choice. As for the main trailer, there are still no concrete details online. There's only one insider claiming they've heard the audio track, which you should take with a grain of salt. According to them, the trailer's vibe is similar to the Thunderbolts teaser, very absolute cinema in tone. And at the very end, a ticking countdown clock appears leading up to the premiere. Marvel is clearly playing with the Doomsday concept, referencing the famous Doomsday clock that symbolizes time running out before apocalypse. Which is ironic, considering Doomsday Clock is also the name of one of DC's most iconic Watchmen crossovers. Funny how that works. Now let's zoom out a bit. Sometimes you go looking for gold and end up finding a diamond instead. Remember how a couple of years ago the internet exploded with rumors that Chris Evans was returning as Cap for a Disney Plus series about returning the Infinity Stones? That idea eventually went nowhere and fans were left disappointed. Turns out that might have been for the best. Now that story is being adapted directly into Doomsday, and according to Ross Marquand, who played Red Skull, that series actually had a pitch and early story outlines, meaning the Russo brothers weren't starting from scratch. They already had a foundation to build on, just with one very important caveat. That series was developed back when the Multiverse saga was still in play, a saga that has now been effectively wiped from the board. Yes, the Russo brothers brought in Loki writer Michael Waldron, supposedly to keep things canon-friendly. But there's a strong feeling they did it more out of courtesy, just to avoid completely messing things up and accidentally declaring Loki the god of coat racks or something equally ridiculous. And that matters because the current multiverse canon basically tells us one thing. After Endgame, no one really knows what actually happened. Greetings to Marvel's writers. On one hand, the TVA was supposedly guarding the sacred timeline and brutally pruning any deviations. On the other hand, there was clearly a second timeline created by the Avengers mission to retrieve the Infinity Stones. The TVA even stated that those time jumps were allowed and didn't break canon. And then, according to the show, Sylvie kills He Who Remains. After that, the multiverse completely spirals out of control. Aggressive Kang variants start appearing, a multiversal war breaks out, and every time it ends with He Who Remains winning, founding the TVA and restarting the loop all over again. A perfect Ouroboros, one that Secret Wars was supposedly meant to break, slowly setting up incursions where universes collide with each other. The problem is, in 5 years, we've seen these incursions maybe 1.5 times, and one of those was in Spider-Man, where the concept existed purely to justify bringing in Garfield and Maguire. So calling Doomsday predictable would be a stretch. The Russo brothers will have to carefully navigate all these contradictions just to make the story fit. The multiverse saga barely showed actual incursions or a coherent multiverse at all. So it's entirely possible Marvel will quietly retcon the Loki claim that everything was fine with the timeline after Cap's mission. However, one thing is almost guaranteed to stay canon. Steve really did return the Infinity Stones. In the teaser, we see Steve and Peggy already with a child. And in Endgame, Cap explicitly says he'll start a normal life only after completing the mission. A man as responsible as Steve Rogers wouldn't abandon his duty for romance, which means the stones were returned. So something went wrong, either during the process or afterward. There were 6 stones, and it's highly unlikely Marvel will rehash the Time Stone with the Ancient One, the Power Stone on Morag, the Soul Stone with Red Skull, or the Reality Stone in Asgard. But something tells us the studio's about to stir things up with the Space Stone, the very one Steve and Tony took from Howard Stark. And it's entirely possible the movie will also tie this into an explanation for why Doom looks like Tony. Imagine Cap messes up the stones in a way that branches reality, and instead of our Tony Stark, Howard ends up having someone else, a Latverian Victor, a cold, ruthless control machine. Sure, it's predictable, but by the rule that I mentioned earlier, that's not a problem. Let fans guess the twist 200 times. If it's shot well, performed well, and hits emotionally, it'll still land. The real question is what you do with Steve after that. In Endgame, we already saw an older version of him, which means, by definition, he survived Doomsday and Secret Wars. That instantly kills the tragic Cap death option and massively limits the Russos' room to maneuver. On the other hand, a reboot is clearly on the horizon. A new reality, a new status quo, which means Endgame doesn't have to stay a hard anchor forever. That's probably how they'll play it. After all the chaos, Steve still finds a way back to his original timeline to live out his life with Peggy. But either way, a chunk of the surprise factor is already gone. Still, there's another hope here, that Marvel doesn't waste not just the next 2 years, but the next 5. Because the only thing worse than bringing back legacy heroes is bringing them back for one final event and then hitting the reset button like none of it mattered. A third Evans is back and Downey is back won't hit the same. People will stop believing in stakes, and even if you kill them on screen, it won't emotionally break the audience, because everyone will be thinking, sure, until they bring them back again. I'm obviously not Marvel's writer, but the most logical move is to avoid making this comeback a one-time firework. Make it a real return, the way they did with Wolverine. Not one last ride, but he's back and he's part of the game again. And this is where our favorite theory fits perfectly. What if Marvel's next saga isn't after Secret Wars, but inside Secret Wars? Meaning the next phase plays out within Doom's battle world, where you can keep Steve, keep Victor, and deliver 5 more years of genuinely strong content without feeling like everything got burned down and restarted. Even if that theory doesn't happen, keeping the legacy characters still makes sense. They smooth the transition into a new saga, give the audience something familiar to hold on to, and help Feige avoid repeating the same mistake, burning bridges with fans, then desperately dragging familiar faces back later just to get people into theaters again. So what do you think? What's the best way to handle Steve Rogers' return in the MCU? And should Marvel keep Evans and Downey around after Secret Wars? Let us know in the comments. That's it for now. More leaks are already on the way.